Hello and welcome to Talking Whisky. My name is Grant and today we're going to talk about adding water to whiskey. Now when you add water to whiskey, it's going to change the whiskey. There's no two ways about that. Now you're going to add water for a number of reasons. You're going to add it for your preference, you're going to add it to explore, you're going to add it to change it, to see what happens. So let's talk about why adding water changes whiskey and what it does to whiskey. So let's talk about what happens when you add water to whiskey. So whiskey itself is made from a grain spirit that has been distilled. Now during that distillation process you can choose when you want to make your cuts. So if you want to make it later on or earlier on, you're going to have heavier or lighter chemicals coming out of the whiskey when you make your cuts. After you've made your cuts, you then put it in a barrel and then it's going to spend years in a barrel. Now that could be 3 years minimum, that could be 2 years in America, that could be 25 years. Now having anything in a barrel means it's going to take on certain aspects from the wood. So it's going to take on some of the tannins. It's going to give maybe a little bit more oil or oily notes in the whiskey. Now adding water to whiskey, that's kind of what you're doing. That's kind of what you're looking for. So let's take this whiskey for example. So this whiskey, I'm just going to tell you, it's an Islay whiskey. Now I know adding water, what's going to happen to it, but we can kind of talk about it why. Now when you have water and you add water to whiskey, now we're only going to do a little drop here just to play with it and experiment with it. So only something like that. Now when you add water to whiskey, what's going to happen is the non-water soluble and the heavier compounds, so like some of the more oily compounds, they're going to rise to the top of the glass. Because realistically what you've got is you've had something that's been in a barrel for 10, 15, 20 years, however long. Now bringing those oils to the top of it is going to change how the whiskey is going to taste. It's going to change how the whiskey is going to smell. Now that happens because those heavier compounds come to the top of the glass, and when you start smelling it, all those heavier compounds are on the top of the glass. And when you take your first sip, again, all those heavier compounds are going to be at the top of the glass. Now, if you want, you can take this over the edge. I could keep adding water, keep adding water, keep adding water, and eventually it's going to null itself out completely. So if you want to do water to whiskey, and if you want to know the right answer to it, it's up to you. You can explore the whiskies to see what happens with them, give it a little drop, just see what happens. Some whiskies it works fantastically with, some it doesn't. This one is an Islay, for example. This one becomes slightly more aggressive. You get a lot of oily compounds coming to the top of it. But the correct answer is, there isn't a correct answer. You just have to explore and you just have to see it and see what you think. Thank you, and cheers.